Hi everyone, this is Linda, and everybody's asked how, or I've had a few people actually ask, how do I create those banners? And I thought I'd share it with you. It's pretty simple. It's one of those ones that I was going to wait and do as a class, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. So I will do another video on actually stitching this out, but this is the one we're going to make. And I thought, it's stuff that should be able to be done in Extra or Ultra. It won't be able to be done in the basic version of the software, but I think you'll get the idea of how to create this. So we're going to start with a blank screen. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to do File and I'm going to do New Window. So the first thing you want to do is change it to a 360 by 260 hoop. And so to do that, basically you choose your hoops. Now, if you do not want to, if you don't have a 360 by 260 hoop, because you have a diamond or another machine that doesn't go quite as wide, you can always change the width. You're just going to have to remember to change all those things when you get into actually creating all the rest of this. So I've got a nice blank screen, and the first thing I'm going to do after doing that is I'm going to go to the wizard. I'm going to go to Word Sculpt. And I want to change my shape, and I'm going to come down here, and I'm coming down to look at all these different shapes you can use for this same process, but we're going to stay pretty simple, and I'm going to keep on going, and I'm going to find this one here, and I want to change the width and the height, so I'm going to uncheck proportional, and you're going to notice something here. It's going to change some things when I actually finish this, and I don't want it to do that, but that's okay. I just want a basting stitch initially, so I'm going to change this to a running stitch, options, and I'm going to change that to 6.0, not 60.0, and do OK. So now I should have just a basic running stitch to kind of hold everything in place into my stabilizer. So I'm going to do next. I don't want any words, so I'm going to delete all those words. I'm going to do finish. And if you notice, it went as long as I needed it to be, but I really want it to still be a little bit wider. So I'm going to go home. I'm going to click on Resize, and I'm going to go to Modify Design, and I want to increase this, but I need to make sure I uncheck proportional, and I'm going to increase it so it's closer to the 260 as far as I can get. So I think it's 259.2, and then 360, it becomes 359.8, which is okay. Okay. So now it's as wide as I need it to be, and I need it to stay as a blue color for this particular purpose. So now the next thing I need to do is I need to go and find my sunflower. So I'm going to go to Super Design. I'm going to type over here, and I'm going to type in sunflower and enter. And there's the one I want. Now you could use either of these other ones. I'm just going to use the regular old satin stitch button, and I'm going to hit up. And I need to change the size to 200 because I'm going to make it as big as I can initially, and I'm going to do apply. And there it is, and it's still not as big as I really want it, so I'm going to go back to the Home tab. And I could have done that here too, but I'm just going to show you another way to do this. Because it has green boxes, I can still make changes to it. I'm going to go to Modify Design, and I'm going to change the width to 125. And yes, I could have done this over on the other, but I just wanted to show you that you can still do this and do OK. Because I actually want to get rid of the green part here. So I'm going to go to the Modify tab. And yes, you're going to get an error, but that's okay. And so I'm going to uncheck everything but color 1. And so what I'm going to do is select all visible, and it's going to just select that particular area, and I'm going to hit delete. And now all I have is my sunflower. So I'm going to do home, and I'm going to alignment and center in the hoop. So then the next thing I need to do is I need to actually cut this and put this in my clipboard. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to click on cut, and it's going to put it in my clipboard for future use. So I'm going to go to the Wizards tab because I'm now going to create that stippling or the whatever stitches you want to use that's kind of looks like a quilt. I'm going to use Quilt Block. I'm going to use Filled Quilt Block Inner Embroidery, do next. And the size I want shape number 2, and I want the 260 by 360, which is the size of the hoop. Make sure include a cut line is unchecked. I'm going to do next. And I now have my sunflower in my clipboard. I'm going to hit paste. I'm going to do next. I need this to be as close as possible. So I'm going to change that to 0. And I'm going to do next. And I'm going to do something very different. Now I could choose any of these other ones, but I'm going to choose a motif this time. I'm going to select options. And I'm going to leave it at universal. General motifs, I want to change it to flowers and leaves too. And look at all these choices I have. I love this. So I'm going to go to number 6. And I want to make it as large as I possibly can. And if I just use those up arrows and just hold my mouse until it's all the way up, and it will only go so far. So then I'm going to do OK. And I could change the angles and those kinds of things, but I'm going to leave it just like that. And I'm going to hit finish. So now I have this, but I need to do a couple of more changes here. So I'm going to go to the Home tab, and I'm going to select Restrict Groups. So what happens is this becomes selected, and so I'm going to actually select Resize. Because what happens right now is this area that's all the quilting area is actually going to be right there at the edge, and I actually want it underneath my fabric. So I'm going to resize this just a small amount. So I'm going to click on Modify Design, and I'm going to just increase this by 105, and it's going to do it proportionally, and I'm going to click OK. So now it just made it just a little bit larger, and this area here is now going to be all behind, because when this Quilt Block Wizard works, it actually sews these little stitches that go all along here. But the other thing I need to do is I need to make sure that this stitches after this, because right now if I use the player, what's going to happen is I'm going to move this along quite a bit. It's going to stitch in some strange order that I don't want it to stitch in. So I need to make sure that this stitches after everything else. So I'm going to click on Layout Order, and I'm going to click on Move to the Front. So now I've got it so it moves to the front, but I need to make sure that these other things don't interfere with the way it needs to happen. I need this first stitch that goes all the way around to go first. So I'm going to use my Tab key, and then my Tab key again. And if you notice, it kind of tells me where this was created using my notes and settings here. So that's the one I want. I want to change that color, and I'm going to change that color. It doesn't matter what it is. I'm just going to change it so it's something really obvious and that isn't going to be used someplace else in the design. So now I need to make sure that everything's stitching in the right order. Again, I'm going to go here, and I'm going to make sure that the blue goes first, then it's going to do the quilting, and then it's going to do my sunflower, and then I'm going to do everything else. Okay, good. So now we've got everything we want. So now I need to go, and I'm going to add a few more things. I'm going to go, let me check my notes here. I'm going to add a smile into the center of this, so I'm going to go to the Super Designs, and I'm going to type in smile and enter, because I already know it exists. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to find that little smiley face. And I'm not going to change the size on this. I do want to make sure nothing is selected so that it doesn't try and attach it to something else. I'm going to hit apply, and it's going to put it to the center, and I do want to change the size. So I'm going to do undo just because I know I can do that. Make sure again nothing is selected. I'm going to change this to 50. And there he is right in the center. And I'm going to change it to something besides blue. Again, it's one of those things that the software tends to like to try and do something strange to it. And I want to make sure that when it's the color blue, because it tries to say that it needs to be colored sewn out first. So I've just changed it to another color that doesn't exist already in the design so far. Okay, so now I need to add, I'm going to add in the little laurels that are down here at the bottom. Make sure nothing is selected. I'm going to go to Frame. I'm going to click on Flourish, and I'm going to pick on the second one in. I could choose on just about anything I wanted. And I'm going to hit Apply, making sure nothing is selected. I'm going to hit Apply. It's going to pop down here to the bottom. I'm going to hold my Control key so it proportionally makes things bigger and smaller, and I'm going to just kind of drag it out until it's pleasing. And the reason I did that basting stitch here is not only to hold the fabric, but it kind of gives me an idea of where everything's going to sew at. So I need everything to sew for the banner itself inside that area. So you make sure that you know that. All right, so I kind of have that kind of about what I want it. I can move it down just a little bit. I could add something else in here, like my initial or something like that. I'm not going to do that. So now we need to add the words. So I'm going to go to the Letter tab, I'm going to make sure nothing is selected. And the font I'm going to use this time, I could use about anything. Again, look through your software and see what it is you have. And I'm going to use Placid. And I'm going to type in, hit enter, sunny day, exclamation part, and I want this one here, which is the bridge concave down. Now play with these different shapes so you can see what else there is to do. So again, I'm going to select that, make sure nothing is selected, apply, and I put it right in the center. So I'm going to make sure that I have those 4 arrows, and I'm going to move it up to where I need it to be. I'm going to move this out. And because I have green, it's still going to make adjustments to the actual font itself and to the stitch size and those kinds of things. Now, I could go in here and change the some properties, like the satin column, and change my density. In fact, I'm going to make it just a little less dense than what it calls for, just so it's not quite so heavy, because I'm sewing this through batting and fabric. So I need to kind of keep that in mind when I'm doing this. All right, so now the only other thing I need to do is add down another stitch that's going to go here, that I'm going to lay my other piece of fabric, and I'm actually going to have 2 pieces because I need to be able to flip it around. So I'm going to actually sew this around here again. I want another banner, so make sure nothing is selected. I'm going to go to the Wizards tab. I'm going to go to Word Sculpt. And I still have this one selected, and I actually want this to be just slightly smaller, so I'm going to do 255, and I'm going to do this one. It's going to change it anyway. I'm just put these in here, so I'm going to say 355, which is just less, and it's going to be, if you notice, it does kind of make some changes. But this time I want it to be a triple stitch because I want everything to be sewn together. Now you could still do it as just a single stitch if you wanted to, and select options and make sure, and I would change that to like a 2.5 or a 3.0, which is what you normally use for sewing. So that way it wouldn't be real heavy. The triple stitch will actually go around that pretty heavily. And again, I would make sure I go into like and put it as a 3. And that's going to hold that together really, really well. So I'm going to do next. I want to make sure there's no words. I'm going to do finish. And if you notice, it kind of put it, it's not quite what I want. You notice it's just as long as I need it to be, but the width and, the length is all the way down to the bottom, and I need to make that just a little bit smaller, and my width is just about right, because I want it to sew just inside my outside edges, just so that I can cover up any extra edges on here. So I'm going to go home, I'm going to select Resize, and I'm going to change Modify Design, and the width is just about fine, so I'm going to just change Proportional, and I'm going to drop this down so it shows about 356. That's about right. It's going to work fine. So it's just inside that area, so it's not going to go right on the edges. And remember, your fabric shrinks a little bit as you do it. When you add those quilting, I'm going to change the color here. And I'm going to just change it to some really weird green. So let's go watch this sew out again. So I'm going to start, and I'm going to follow. It's going to do my or my stitches. It's going to do the applique and stop where it's appropriate. It's going to do my laurels. And it doesn't really matter if that's out of order a little bit. It's not going to hurt anything. If you do want to change that so that that changes, sews at a different place, you can use your tab key and tab through each of your designs. This should be your first one. This is going to be your stippling and some of your other stuff. So I'm going to get to the point where I've got my smiley face, and I want to change this color because it appears to be one of these colors. So I'm going to change this, and I'm going to change it to purple. It doesn't really matter. Again, let's watch this sew out and see what happens. It has to do with the way it color sorts and does all those wonderful things. So now it's going to do my face, and then it's going to do that, and then it's going to do that, and it's going to do that last stitch out. Yep. So there it is. See that you can just barely see it. It's that last stitch. It's going to go all the way around. Okay, so I'm going to hit cancel. So now it should be good to go. And again, I'll do another video that kind of shows you how I actually stitch this out, because it is stitched just kind of strangely. So If you don't care about that last one, if you just want to expose the back side, that's fine too. So I hope that once I get the other stitch out video done, that I actually see some samples. Thanks.